Osteo is the big prefix for bone. When we're young, osteoblasts are building our skeleton. Then we kind of get in the middle part of our life and we have osteocytes. So they're just cruising along, keeping us functioning. If we're not careful, osteoclasts are going to remove bone. Okay, so let's begin on this story. Oh, my daughter talked me into a yoga retreat. Okay, our skeleton is constantly being remodeled, and osteoblasts are the ones I mentioned when we're young. They're going to build these rings of lamellae so that our bone mass increases. Okay, that goes on until, we're a certain age, and then the osteocytes take over. Okay, so here we have a view of osteoblasts depositing bone, but they're going to become isolated because they build up so much bone that now they're surrounded, and the tiny canaliculi that are bringing fluids, those canals are getting thinner and thinner, and so these osteoblasts convert into osteocytes, and now they just maintain us. Okay, the bone stays pretty steady, and so that's a good thing. What we don't want is the osteoclast to get busy. Now we can avoid this because, okay, the upper part is a normal pathway. Yeah, we're busy with our lives and we're having some calcium. A cheese stick, yogurt, green vegetables cooked. And we get calcitonin released and we're able to function. Our muscles are developing, our bone and skeleton is. Now, if we have what's called hypocalcemia versus hyper, that means, okay, here we are. We're active, we're exercising, we think we're leading a good life, but we don't have enough calcium in our bloodstream. And the body says, hey, I can't even contract a muscle. I can't even move without calcium. Where am I going to get calcium? So parathyroid or PTH hormone says, hey, there's only one place we can get calcium, and that's right here from bones. Although, truly, you have a little reserve here in the intestines and the kidneys. So, you can go without calcium for a while, but I would, throughout the day, try to take in small amounts of calcium. Or, what happens is now we're going to be osteolysis, and it can lead to a serious disease. I'll talk about a little bit of this in a bit. All right, the epiphyseal plates are just growth plates. And, sometimes when a young person is injured right at the plate, we worry because this is cartilage and it's going to be depositing bone in two directions. And that's how our bones elongate. It's called ossification. You see, when we're young, we're super flexible. Some kids can put their feet behind their head and do the splits. But eventually this process called ossification causes hydroxyapatite to crystallize the bone, and it hardens. And that's a good thing, except, well, I'll just leave it at that. Now, we use this idea of hydroxyapatite when we implant like a tooth, because we paint it with hydroxyapatite, and so the bone is going to go around it. Now, in the old days, we try to glue or cement in these prosthetics like a hip, and that caused osteolysis, because we didn't understand that it's better to get your own bones to grow around the prosthetic than to try to glue them in. So now we use this hydroxyapatite and the implantation of devices is getting really good. Arthritis. Okay, to understand arthritis, we have to look at cartilage, because cartilage, remember, that's the substance between bones that helps the joints to move. Now, these chondrocytes or cartilage cells, they need to be stimulated through movement. And so we have to move until we die. Now, if we get some injuries and inflammation, leukocytes are going to move in there and start to eat our own cartilage. And we have a disease called, well, here it is, arthritis. Now, there's lots of causes for this. Movement is one, and that's why my work in Nicaragua and Panama with monkeys, here's my son, and my daughter goes too. We climb trees and we study the movements of monkeys. We even published a paper, How to Climb Trees to Study Monkeys. Yeah, that's kind of wild. Okay, so what we found is ROM, range of movement. Monkeys in zoos, they don't have a wide ROM, and so they don't move enough, so their cartilage thins out. So the message there is you got to move till you die. Osteoporosis, I kind of mentioned this a little bit. When you're age 35, you're at your peak skeleton mass. It's like a bank account, and then you start borrowing from it. And you know, your age, estrogen, smoking, if you're thin, it reduces your bone mass. And at some point in your life, you might get a DEXA scan, dual energy. And if your T-score is like -1 to 4, you're doing good. That's where you want to be. If your T-score is -1 to -2.5, you have osteopenia. It means, you know, you need to get busy and be increasing your calcium uptake. Okay, I'm not talking about big, gross amounts. I'm just talking about throughout the day. And at some point, osteoporosis -2.5 or more. That means the bones have thinned to the point that they're fragile. One fall can cause a break. And this is where we don't want to go. We don't want to start borrowing from our skeleton. All right. So think about that every day. Find a way to increase your calcium intake. Okay, different types of joints. Fibro is like the skull and the teeth, just, you know, not really a movable joint. Cartilaginous joint is a little bit movable, like the backbone. And oh, here's a nice view of the cartilaginous segments between the vertebrae. Cervical's neck, thoracic mid-body, lumbar, lower, and the sacrum. All right. Synovial, this is what we often think of as joint. It's a kind of a third type of joint, shoulder, elbows, hips, and knees. There's a fluid formed by the synovial membrane, and it's incredible. It's like motor oil, and it lubricates the joint. Now, there's lots of supplements out there that like to tell you that, you know, you take my supplement and you will get synovial fluid, you'll never get arthritis, but really, it's complicated. You have to maintain your entire health. You know, it's a body maintenance is a responsibility, and we have a fair amount of control. It includes diet, movement, and you know, also annual physical exams to see how your blood panel's doing. So we can't just take pills or powders, you know, and expect, like, look at that space, that's marvelous. That's probably a young person, active young person with that much, and that is the condyles of the femur, and there's the tibia. Yeah, pretty cool. Shoulder joint. Okay, this one looks kind of complicated, but let's learn some anchor points. The clavicle or collarbone. The acromion, which is part of the scapula. Here's the acromion, and down below is the coracoid process. So there's 3 anchor points. All right? Clavicle, acromion, coracoid. And so with that knowledge, you can kind of understand, okay, here's the supraspinatus. And it's coming down under these bones, and so we often have impingement. If someone says they injure a shoulder, it's often the supraspinatus. Yeah, impingement. But if they're falling while they're running, they're going to ram the acromion into clavicle here. AC joint, see this joint right here? Acromion clavicular. And so you have an AC separation. And the knee, yeah, we have a meniscus, which is a pillow of cartilage to separate the 2 major bones. We have a cruciate, I like that word, cross. And then we have the collateral on the side. I love these joints, yeah, because we are built to move. We're not built to sit on the couch, right? I hope you're getting that message. All right, thanks for listening.